future of virtual reality, organized by VRTogether. My name is Patrick de Lange. I will be the host of this webinar, and we are organizing this webinar because we really want you to learn about virtual reality. What could, what should, and what has to happen to virtual reality in order to have a meaningful impact on the way we work, we learn, we shop, we play, we travel. What are today's most promising use cases, business cases regarding VR, and how can you start tomorrow using this promising technology? Before we start this webinar, and of course, welcome to all participants from all over the globe. Before we start, a few practical announcements, because we would like to make it as interactive as possible today. So if you want to ask a question, please use the Q&A or the chat function in this Zoom application, whether you have it downloaded or you use the app on your device. At the end of the webinar, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. And also when we see very relevant questions related to the panel discussions in between, then of course we will monitor the questions and we will make them part of the discussion as well. Finally, the webinar, of course, can also be viewed on demand afterwards. We will provide a link and, of course, a short questionnaire. What did you think of the webinar in general? So I suggest we start. I am only presenting the webinar. We have invited several experts as panel members who have a definitely good track record with virtual reality. So first of all, let's start with Pablo Cesar. Pablo, please, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Pablo Cesar. I lead a group at CWI, the Centrum Wiskunde en Informatica. It's the National Research Center for Computer Science and Mathematics in the Netherlands. I'm professor at TU Delft on Human-Centered Multimedia Systems. And I've been, for the last 10 years, looking into social VR, in particular in point clouds, and how could you transmit in real-time point clouds and create experiences that connect with other people. I don't know if you need more, but I will tell more later. So.
I'm sure about that, knowing you a little bit. Well, then, next to him is Sergi Fernandez Langa. I hope you pronounce your name correctly with the stupid Dutch accent. Could you introduce yourself?
You pronounced it perfectly, Patrick. Thank you. Well, my name is Sergi Fernandez. I'm the director of the Media and Internet area at I2CAT, which is a research center based in Barcelona. And I'm also the coordinator of the VRTogether project, which is, let's say, this webinar is framed in this project, which is funded by the European Commission. And the objective is to do a set of research activities and to develop a platform for photorealistic social VR. So practically speaking, what we have been doing the last 2.5 years is developing a set of tools that you would need to offer multi-user holoconferencing in VR real time. And currently now we are testing this platform in different vertical use cases, from culture, health, video entertainment, education, and training. So the next 3 months, we are going to be very active trying to match, let's say, the requirements from the users in different verticals to our platform. I think that's enough. And
yeah, no, and I think the most striking things are, of course, that it is photorealistic and in real time. So the combination that makes it quite exceptional. Okay, Christian, could you be so kind to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Christian. I have a company called Kanda out of Denmark, where we're present mainly in Denmark and Singapore. And we work mainly as a developer for VR and AR applications, primarily in the maritime and pharmaceutical sectors.
Okay, thanks. Bas, last but not least, could you please be so kind telling a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Bas Pauwme. I've been working the last decades, at most in companies that are enabling AR, VR at scale. So I worked a long time at Microsoft. I worked at Oculus, Facebook, and now I'm working on the AWS side. So more on the platform side to enable AR, VR. And I've been mostly driving this from a business perspective, so not so much from a research perspective that I've heard before. So more the practical side, so what people can get in their hands right now and where it's going.
So first identify a problem and then make the technology instead of the other way around, basically.
No, yeah, the technology needs to run fast to keep up with the ideas that the gentlemen all have, of course. I'm located in Seattle, so I just woke up, so good morning. Yeah, AWS in Seattle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The ones and the participants that have had a keen eye on our digital flyer notice that there is one name missing in the panel members, amongst the panel members. That is Jay Maloney of KLM. He is the VR consultant doing great things VR related within KLM. He rang a little over an hour ago that he was called into an escalation meeting internally, and that in no way he could escape the escalation meeting, and he will try his utmost to join a little bit later. Just to have you updated on that side. The last face on the screen, I think Jarn, at least Jarn is a colleague of mine, and Jarn, well, you run the technology behind the webinar, making sure that everything runs smoothly.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Well, a little bit about the agenda of today. The centerpiece we have built around 3 or 4 topics. First of all, we do a deep dive into what is now the impact of VR today. What is the impact on businesses? What is the impact on society? What is the impact really in people's lives? Then around 15:20 CEST, we will dive into the most promising VR use and business cases. And after 15 minutes talking about really practical examples, we are looking at, okay, and if I want to start this in my organization tomorrow, what if I see that virtual reality has a great and enormous potential in my business, solving all kinds of challenges or solving my major challenge? How can I gain value with VR in my organization? How do you start small, or how do you start then for example tomorrow? And then our last topic is, of course, looking ahead. How will VR develop? What is the future of VR? What is the future potential of VR? How will VR look like in 2030, 2050, for example? Let's dream at the end of our hour together. And then, of course, the last 10 minutes, we will do a Q&A, look at all the questions that came in. So once again, I invite you to use the Q&A functionality, use the chat functionality. If you have any questions, let us know and we will address them as much as possible. So I would say let's start with the impact. Virtual reality, you cannot miss updates about it, I think, daily, weekly. So what is the current state of affairs? What is the impact of virtual reality today? What I said before, on businesses, on society, on our daily lives. Pablo, you probably have already in your entire career spent a lot of time getting your head around this question.
So I think that, I mean, virtual reality per se is a reality in many businesses, right? I think that as of today, it's been used for training very much. It's been used for treatments very much. It's been used for the defense. So all that is happening. It's already there, and it's been an essential part of our society anyway. because I mean we can all see on hospitals, doctors, all training centers, all kind of diseases that they can be treated. So I think these are reality. Now the thing of COVID is that it has taught us that our collaboration and communication capabilities are very, very limited. And this is something that, well, in my research I've done for a long time for many reasons. But I think this has become a clear reality for any citizen in the world, in which suddenly that visiting your parents meant that you couldn't actually do it because you were just at home. So I think that while virtual reality is a daily routine for many industries, on all the sectors, the next frontier is collaboration and communication. And still is not there. I mean, there are many issues why it's not there, of course. One being all the demands that they have. But that's in the terms of, I mean, how the world is structured right now. I think that we had that perfect opportunity to show how VR could actually help a pandemic like this one, and we haven't, which is not a good thing. So I think that in the state of affairs is very present. I think it's very used in any sector, in any company, in many ways, in applications, but it still is not in the places in which it's more visible. That's in the homes, or that is for further communication and collaboration.
So if the pandemic is doing any good, probably not, but if it's doing any good, it is showing the added value of VR more.
I think that if the pandemic is doing any good, which it doesn't,
no.
At least it's showing what are the current challenges that our societies have.
Yeah.
And of course, there is no kind of healthcare and the rest, but I think in terms of remote communication, remote collaboration, it's really showing, I'm showing it in a very bad way, that this is a problem. And we are spending hours and hours in these Zoom meetings. We all end up totally tired, when we could have systems that they are much more realistic in 3D, in which we could actually have a much more relaxed and natural communication without really having to go. And the fact of the pandemic is that it forces us, but we knew that, right? I mean, we couldn't follow all the habits that we had in terms of transportation, or, I mean, we knew that this was just unbearable for our society, spending hours and hours in a car to get to work.
I see one of the questions of an anonymous attendee is, what are some of the main issues in which, if we were more VR integrated, could have helped during this pandemic? So what is preventing it?
Well, so the benefits would have been that, for example, you could have remote healthcare in a normal manner, that we could have a better education, that we could have better communication with the people we love. The actual problems is, well, there are requirements on bandwidth that they are pretty high. There is the representation of the user, which right now typically they are avatars, which means that it's not yourself, the one that is teleported to another place. It's just a representation of yourself. And that's good for certain things, but for others, it just doesn't make any sense. And for me, it really is the headset. So the fact that you need a headset that it's actually makes you sick in a million different ways, depending on what are you doing. That's a huge factor. I always put as an example, I did my PhD in Finland in the 2000s. In there, Nokia was super important, which meant that we learn about mobile multimedia. It had to come the iPhone in order to actually see how that would be resolved, right? To get a product that we could see, oh, wow, this is actually mobile multimedia. And I think in terms of equipment, it's going to be the same. At some point, someone will have to come with a solution that everyone will see as, okay, that's it. That's the solution.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research on that.
Christian, I saw you nod a few times.
Yeah, so one of the issues, or one of the cases that I saw recently was this Korean woman who they had recreated an experience with her deceased daughter, where they could be together in this interactive setup, animated, and I think that was really the one that hit home for me. That the technology is starting to develop really fast, and we need to be more aware of where does this put us. We don't want to end up in a situation where we're seeing what happened during the opium epidemics, that people are simply choosing to be in VR instead of the real world for a massive amount of time. We're already seeing this in the gaming world. So as we start getting technology that can be more and more realistic, we need to, as a society, also be aware of what is a desirable amount of time and desirable use cases for VR.
That makes sense. Bas, especially from a business perspective, how do you see the impact of VR today, so to say?
Yeah, I think you make the points were made are clear. So the least the average dominated that everybody needs to have a headset or has to have access to technology to make this happen at scale. That is, I think, one of the limiting factors. The other thing is, of course, also the latency, like how our people are experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all on the brink of breakthroughs there where you have 5G potentially effectively available everywhere, and you have, let's say, cost-effective devices available that make use of now storage in the cloud and compute in the cloud and a very, very fast connection that potentially would break through a lot of these things. So I think
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so if you look at the impact right now, then you see it more in remote, not real-time connections, like training, like and all the other scenarios are much smaller at scale. At the previous company that I worked for, we did really test already in with the avatar in more social engagement, and then you see the limitations of that, and that is currently, I think, still a lot to do with the state of the technology. And then the second one is, of course, that we as humans have to accept it and we have to adjust to it. And I think those two things have to run side by side.
Not so long ago, I read a nice blog by Benedict Evans. You probably know him, one of the partners in Andreessen Horowitz, and he raised the question: is VR currently where smartphones were before the iPhone? And I think it was a nice way to put it. So Sergi, what do you think? Is that where we are?
No, I think we are even before than that.
Okay.
So I think we don't have even, the compact Nokia 10 or 20 years ago. I think we are still not there, but in principle we should go faster. So if I can, regarding the impact that today has VR, my personal expectations 4 years ago were that today in 2020 VR would be mainstream in video entertainment. That was my idea 4 years ago. Then you see after the years that is not there, although a lot of investment went to companies trying to achieve this. And VR is not there because there is still some technological development that needs to be done. But it is true that VR is having a key impact in very specific activities where it really provides a value to the user or to the companies. For instance, examples that were mentioned, like training, but in particular, for instance, heavy machinery training. Machines that you only have one, and it costs like $30 million, and you don't want to give this machine to someone day one and try it and go with your trainer. So training courses, already existing training courses, are being improved with VR, for instance. Or mental health issues. That's a typical example. And the example that I like the most is accessibility, because I see it there very clearly. In Korea, I think Samsung or a spin-off of Samsung is developing a technology to adapt real-time the image that you see through a camera that you have here in your headset and adapts it so you, with some kind of a sight loss, can see better. So, people that has only partial view or that they only see in the center of the eye or a part of the eye, and that they need to do some type of physical effort to fix their vision. This is a way to improve this, and even much worse cases. So,
one of the questions asked is, how do you see 5G transforming the adoption of VR?
But I see it, but I'll tell you why. my expectations were super high on 5G because I work for a technological center where 5G is one, or 6G, let's say networking technologies are the main pillar. So my expectations are used to be come sooner and they are higher.
Yeah.
And what I was expecting from 5G for 2020 was higher bandwidth, minimum delay. And this is somehow there when you have a 5G antenna, but also distributing computing efforts through the network in a smart way. And this is not possible today. You need proprietary networks. And I don't see this possible in the next 5 years because the investment that operators need to do is huge. Of course, there are efforts to accelerate this investment. And VR, I would say, is the main use case that operators are now using to push this investment.
No, makes sense. Talking about use cases, Christian, you have a successful digital development studio. You do a lot of great projects related to VR, XR, etc. What do you think, in your opinion, today are the most promising use cases? What do your clients ask of you?
So it's already been mentioned that you have heavy machinery or something that's expensive, but something I personally are really happy about is that they're also starting to replace the classroom idea. You know, this idea that to learn something, you need to fly people halfway around the world, put them together in a classroom, basically just register attendance and then fly them back. It's not good for the environment, and it was never that great of a learning setup to begin with. So COVID has really pushed this need to rethink not only how do you do simulation training, but also the classroom and how should we reevaluate that. And I think that has the potential to be huge. You know, I think a lot of the mileage that are being flown today could probably be cut away if you're looking at corporate training and events where you are just bringing people together to sit in a classroom for 3 days.
And besides training, because I think all markets, I think the training market is a kind of a horizontal. It is a horizontal market relevant for all verticals. Which use case or which vertical market do you see takes the lead at the moment in regarding VR?
I mean, I'd have to say gaming. It's
of course,
finally starting to take off. There's a game out, Star Wars Squadrons, and I mean, I grew up with Star Wars, so it's close to my heart being able to fly around in an X-wing or a TIE fighter, you know, with a joystick and in VR, and you're able to look around. That is an awesome experience, and I think that's the first case where I really saw, you know, this makes sense. VR makes this a better experience that you could do traditionally.
And Bas, next to gaming, which markets do you see taking the lead after gaming?
I think experience marketing is the biggest one, where you see that you can make products available to potential customers in a very rich way. That can be in real estate, people running through buildings that have not been built yet, driving around or configure their cars where they have not been able to drive it or to see it. So I think that kind of scenarios are, especially for the high-end products, is something that is worth the effort and worth the investments of developing these kind of experiences. So I think you see that happening. And then, of course, when you pull that through to more scalable things, then it's, and also looking at COVID, you can potentially, and that is still depending on how fast the new headsets are getting into the hands of consumers. But that is something that is growing very fast. And I think that is probably also the most close by scenario what will be enabled first.
And a question for you all: do we also see
and military? By the way, I think we should not forget where the military is going and how often they are the driver of innovation, and look at the investment of world scale. AR VR in the military is driving a lot of these things.
And do we also, a question for you all, do you also see some specific vertical market underestimate the potential benefits from VR? Let's say that there's a market where you say, hey, I'm surprised that this market is not embracing the potential of VR. Is there any market that lags behind?
I mean, I think that the cultural sector could do much more. As we have seen from even from the COVID situation, right? In the COVID situation, I think one of the main sectors that is being affected is the cultural sector, because suddenly.
And gaming is not culture, in that sense. Then
you can gamify. You can gamify cultural experience.
I don't consider gaming as the cultural sector, but anyway, I consider more in the entertainment sector. But the thing is that it's been. I mean, for them, it's been really difficult because it's been. I mean, it's like transportation, right? It's been at the core of their business model. I mean, the whole point is that you go somewhere and you experience something, and that's how it typically works. So I think that in that area, and of course here at CWI we are working with several organizations in that area. There is a huge potential because suddenly, I mean, if you think of museums, of course, museums, they went through the process of digitalizing all their archives, because that was one important thing. But it was really for storage. It was not for showing. So the difference between that storage and showing is huge. And I think that there is so many possibilities that they could be actually done for that sector in order to make sure that they take advantage of everything that is happening, and still making everything available for everyone in the world, which I guess is, I mean, at the end of the day, is one of the main purposes.
Yeah.
The other sector that is essential, obviously, is healthcare, but I think they are on top of it. I mean, they do have all the training. They are investing millions and millions in making sure that the VR is used in their own setups.
Yeah.
I also think one of the areas that I think is going to increase it a lot in the coming years is robotics and remote operation of assets. So for example, instead of having fully autonomous cars, maybe have some places where you can have people who are jumping in and assisting it remote, or you're looking more and more at having remote flight towers and remote operation of offshore assets. So combining VR and AR with robotics, I think, is an area that's going to take off quite a lot in the coming years.
Yeah, did your company already do a project on that part, or?
We did some prototypes looking at how can you remote operate a robot for wind turbines, but these are very early stages. But we're seeing some stuff, especially coming up from Japan. I remember where you were looking at remote operation. I think there was one. It looks really scary, but it was putting stuff on shelves, sort of a dark-ish robot.
Okay. And in Seattle, Buzz, yeah, exactly, yeah.
No, one of the I think attendees mentioned also remote maintenance, and I think that is absolutely true, and mostly on the AR part, where you indeed see that the knowledge level and the technical level of to maintain any technical installation is of course enabled with these kinds of technologies very, very successfully. Now look at a company like Boeing or whatever. Sorry.
Boston Dynamics and some of the cool stuff that they're doing. Remote operation.
Yeah, is that for example, could safety also be an element there that VR can provide?
I think half of our projects is health and safety related. So how do you do fire evacuations? How do you act in a dangerous environment? VR makes really, really good sense because you don't have to be there, but you can create smoke, you can create fire, explosions, all of these aspects that are very expensive to do in the real world. Yeah.
And Sergi, what do you see as the most promising use case? I mean, we've seen culture, we've seen healthcare.
It depends how you understand promising and how you measure this. And of course, today I agree with, that the use cases that Pablo and Christian and Bas commented are the use cases that we see now happening in the market, are already there and getting better and better. but I really see potential with the potential that I expect for VR. To me, is very connected to the development of 6DoF technology or light field technology, and to me, the most potential use case would be video entertainment. That's, I think, that all people dreaming, technical or non-technical people dreaming with the future of VR, we see ourselves in a film, and that would be for me the wow thing. If you can experience a light field screen, for instance, and you understand what this means, and then you understand how would this look like all around you, is like to be in there. So first would be video entertainment, but with the newest technology, the newest formats, and the other case, meetings, or conferencing.
Just one question according to the pandemic from the chat. Have you seen any specific security threats or concerns that had emerged during the pandemic using VR?
Well, there are many. I've even participated in some projects that study the problems of wearing HMDs. For instance, a very simple thing. When you cover your eyes, you don't see what people does around you. That's already a security thing that you may have depending on where you are and depending the people that you have around or what happens. You cannot react because you are somewhere else. So of course there are security issues, plus all the security issues related to any ICT application has data, personal data, transmission of data and so on.
Yes.
And how important is the social aspect in VR in all this? So be able to do the experience together, Bas.
Yeah, I think that is the driving a lot of the acceptance. So social gaming is, I think, one of the areas that will grow the fastest. I mean, gaming is the innovation driver anyway. That's where the money is. That's where the investments are going. That's where the studios are. And I think the next thing is social gaming. So being able to drive a golf tournament with your friends from the couch, or at least from your living room, in a social and in a fun manner. I think that is what's next. Honestly, one of the applications
League together. Watch the Champions League together. Yeah.
If you look at one of the applications that was first there, and what's still for me the most fun is Google Earth, and walk around in with pandemic coming, you cannot fly anymore. I was sometimes really homesick and say, hey, I would really love to walk around there, and then being able to do that, and that with other people, that would be awesome, of course. If you can meet each other at a certain place, which you already know, I mean, that these things are resemble of real life, and very with a low barrier from a conceptual perspective. So I think these kind of things, which are gaming related, are scale related, and where you see that the personal headsets come in. I mean, the other thing of safety in Corona, we did see a big risk with the hygiene and the health aspect of having one or multiple headsets that need to be shared with multiple people. That is currently a big issue. So the cost factor of the whole AR VR to get things at scale, and therefore also the investments associated with it to make something at scale, I think should not be overlooked.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks. By the way, just don't forget to ask your questions.
There is one.
The audience now quickly, and at the end we will definitely have a lot of time to address the most relevant questions. You said, Jan, there is one.
Yeah, there is one. There's an anonymous attendee again. The question is, I'm writing my thesis on VR, and what sector or use case in this moment do you guys believe to be missing further research, or where can there be a gap in the research?
I think there's a lot of research out there when you're looking at non-peer-reviewed articles, but what is really missing is good research. You know, where you dive into it, you have a good enough sample of people who tested it. You have a control.
He's insulting you, Pablo. No. Go ahead, Christian.
Nothing
Sorry.
specific, but
Yeah.
just when you're looking at the volume of stuff that is coming out right now, I think there's definitely, I think any new technology has this issue, and then as the hype dies down a bit, then we're going to see more sort of strenuous stuff come out, or that come up to the surface.
Pablo,
Okay.
you have to respond. There is a lack of good research regarding VR.
Now, well, I totally disagree with that, but that's okay. Going back to this student, right? I think that it depends, of course, the discipline in which, because of course we don't know what is the discipline, so it's not the same a thesis in computer science that a thesis in communication science. But I mean, there is still plenty of research because, I mean, right now, I mean, we have some systems, and of course, there's been a lot of research on how you behave, for example, in social VR or not. But now the key difference is that we are starting to see systems that they actually work, which means that research can be much broader or much more deep as well in the implications of what that means, right? I think before there was this mention of how it's going to affect people, this dissociation from reality. I think that's a totally essential type of research. There were questions about threats. So one of the things that we are seeing in social VR is like in any other aspect of life, we humans don't necessarily behave well all the time. So of course, in a social VR situation in which you become an avatar, behavior can be actually very nasty. So there is a whole area of research in there, drone sociology, on how you control what that means. I mean, there is so bullying aspects that you should control. I mean, there is, depending, of course, in which is their discipline, then the type of research is different. But I think that right now doing a thesis on any of these aspects of VR is just going to be, I mean, it's a million options.
Yeah, and is it a lack of research or also lack of valorization of good research, basically? You know,
answering to the other question, I'm unsure. I mean, I think that there is very good research, and actually research is getting in many places. Then yes, I mean, research institutions, they naturally have always the problem of how you valorize and make available this, what you are doing in a manner in which there is a good dialogue. I think the solution from the European Union in which companies and research work together towards a project, I think that's actually a very good one. I mean, I've seen a lot of my research later on being, if not used, at least serving as an ideas by some of the companies that we collaborated with like 10 years ago or something like that. But I do agree.
Imagine we have 50. Sorry, come again.
No, that I agree that there is some mismatch always between research and industry because it's always complicated to speak in the same terms. So,
hey, imagine that with amongst the 50 plus participants we have right now is someone with an organization think, hey, this is my missing link. I have a challenge which I want to solve using VR in the period ahead. So how can I start using VR technology in my organization tomorrow? What do I do? What are the steps that I have to take? Sergi.
Call Sergi.
Yeah.
and let's see what can be done. No, seriously speaking, we are somehow lucky because there are out there already existing a lot of social VR platforms. I agree that social, understood as communication between people that may be doing things together, is not only a great thing, is a driving motto of humanity since Gutenberg. Communicate with other humans, and that's to me what means ICT, information communication technologies. So there are plenty, I would say more than 20 platforms out there, existing social VR platforms, and you can do a decent number of things there. What I don't see are, let's say, I don't see at this level of maturity or in this quantity out there, specific applications for specific domains, for a specific type of collaborations with the same level of reach than the social VR platforms. One of the participants, for instance, wrote about Spatial.io, okay, that's a very good example of how you can
Yeah.
accelerate meetings in your company when you have distributed executives around the globe with different devices. And what all these platforms show is that they cannot stay in the head-mounted display until they get the next generation of head-mounted display.
Yeah. By the way, Jarn, I think Jay is in. Maybe you can add
Yes,
him.
I will admit.
Hey, and thanks, Sergi, for that.
see you.
What do you advise, Christian? What do you advise when someone asks, "Hey, I've seen this technology. I see a huge business opportunity, but hey, we haven't done anything so far."
Yeah, I mean, the first advice is don't spend too much money to begin with. You know, it's about figuring out which direction to go in. So I usually advise go out, buy the Oculus Quest. There's a new one out that is insanely better than the previous one, especially considering how short a period between the previous version. And then just start buying a few games, bring them home to your family, see how your kids react, give it to employees, let them take it home. See, you know, what type of apps do people like? What type of games do they like? How long are they spending there? To try and figure out who are the champions in your organization, who are the people who are genuinely interested in trying to push this technology, and try and set up a group where you have these people brought together to try out some things. And only then do you start then looking at this more structured and start spending more money on exploring specific platforms.
Yeah. Thanks. Hi, Jay. Good that you could also make it. I don't know. Can we hear you? Yes, no? Yeah. I think so.
Just to interrupt, Patrick, and for all of you guys, a really nice question. What are your dreams about VR and that will achieve in its peak?
So, well, Jay, maybe that's a good one for you to start.
Yeah. One of my pet projects, of course. Equality. I think virtual reality has the potential to create equality on many different platforms. One of the platforms which we're looking at within our company at the moment is to create virtual traveling for that makes the experience accessible for everybody. Makes no difference.
Quickly to interrupt you, to introduce you for everybody. You are with, let's say, within KLM, responsible for all VR activities. Maybe too much credit at the moment, but it's more or less what it is, no?
Yeah, exactly. I'm the guy that stays a little bit busy with virtual and augmented reality and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, in between escalations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Flying is pretty virtual right now at KLM, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a very, very challenging period for us at the moment, I can guarantee you. But you know, it's also it's a time of opportunity as well. But anyway, going back to your question, as I said, I believe virtuality, the technology has the potential to create equality in many aspects of our common lives. As I said, creating experiences for people who cannot afford to travel all over the world, but to still give them the experience of going to Paris, going shopping in Paris, or maybe people who are not able to travel, that they're able to still experience having dinner in India. I don't know, but and look at the interview process. You can make it anonymous, but also personal. You know, there are lots of ways which I think virtual reality is going to really drastically change the way we meet together and we talk together and we do things together. Convinced.
And Bas, what's your view on that? You already mentioned, of course, your need to go to Google Earth in the lockdown.
I mean, that's a very that technology was already there. It comes from the browser and is working very good in artificial reality. So I think the one thing has not been mentioned, and that's the porn industry, which is always also a driver of content in these kind of. We all know the VCR, how that went big. I think also in this case, making things going faster, investments behind it. And I think the other one that I mentioned before, the military, which we see is investing heavily in these things, where ordinary soldiers can be much more efficient and get access to all the data that they need and make less mistakes, hopefully, and therefore a safer world. So these kind of scenarios we didn't mention before. I think they also are, let's say, open up. I think one of the things that we need to realize is that there's not enough money going in yet to make these things all scalable. So there are only a few companies that invest heavily in AR, VR, and especially on the hardware side. I think Oculus is the only one that really has massive investments behind it and drives things at scale and make it available. I think if we want to really have scalable scenarios, then we need more companies that do that the same way, driving innovation, challenge each other, and make these things available at scale at a low cost. I think Oculus is hard to match. I mean, they have a different calendar. They do look at VR as the next social platform, and of course their monetization model is eyeballs, and of course there's a lot of discussion going on around how this affects our privacy and what do we share. Also, that kind of discussion can be a brake on AR VR development. If you bring these kind of devices into your personal life, and what kind of currency do you trade off with them to make that happen? So there are a lot of these kind of discussions going on. But I think in general, all these scenarios are wonderful, and but if we all want to have equality with this, then cost needs to go down, access of availability needs to go up. So we need to make a lot of innovations and changes.
Where is it headed? Where is it headed? And what is the potential in the future? I mean, if you look at several market research, it will 21-fold every few years. Blah 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 blah. So in 2030 and in 2050, what will VR look like?
I think one of the real potentials of this technology is that we pretty much figured out that there's not enough physical resources for everyone to have that nice car and the great house with the perfect view. But if we are starting to get really, really good VR, maybe we don't need so much physical value, and maybe we can look more at intrinsic value and experience value. And I think VR has the potential to be that technology where we can get a world where we focus less on material value and more on the intrinsic value of things. I think that is a huge potential for solving the issues we see today.
Makes sense. Jay, yeah.
I'll bet my shoes on it. You know, I'll eat my own shoes if it doesn't happen. Within 5 years, now let's make it play safe. 6 years. You will not know the difference between reality and virtual reality. You will not be able to see it. The hardware is going that fast at the moment. We're all ready to 4K resolution. You know, it's just a question. It's just a question of getting the right code into it. Now it's going so fast that you will just know no difference with it, and you'll have a mental difference, but you can physically not see a difference. And that I'm convinced this is going to happen very quickly.
Nice statement. So you will say in 7 years, VR will replace reality.
It will enhance.
Enhance. Okay. Yeah. So Pablo, just a reaction.
Oh, I had all these conversations with Jay all the time, so we totally don't agree on that. But he really believes that VR is going to change everything in the next 2 years. Right now he's being very conservative on his opinion. I think it will take a bit longer. I think that I mean, first, the technology is not prepared. Second, the society is not prepared. And third, we as a society should be careful on what we bring, because we might break many other things trying to make the right thing. Because as you can imagine, with VR, suddenly fake news becomes fake reality, which to me is quite a threat. I mean, there are so many other implications that I'm sure that it will take a bit longer. For the dream of VR, oh, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
for the dream of VR for me is togetherness. I think that's very much in that side. I mean, we are able.
So Bas, when will VR replace reality?
I think the VR or the AR bit. I think we didn't mention AR AR a lot, but I think AR will overtake VR quickly because VR probably has still some limitations, but AR will be everywhere. I mean, blending information and accessibility to the latest information and make that actionable for everybody. I mean, those scenarios are so much bigger, and that's also where a lot of the investments are going currently. So VR.
Well, AR is the human interface, basically, of all exponential technology. You know, you can put data in a contextual
exactly.
Image, so,
yeah. So it of course the definition is also much wider. So, but I think a lot of the investments are going hand in hand, and also the acceptance of humans how to blend this. And if you're in the VR space or in your virtual, but if you blend those two worlds, then you have AR in my view.
Hey, oh, sorry.
So no, I'm going to Sergi now quickly, Jan.
Okay.
So before we go to the Q&A, and we do all the Q&A. So Sergi, will in your world replace VR eventually reality?
No, I think this won't happen, but it will be very. The dream is that our dream is that this will happen at some point. But to get there, we need to get at least the same visual quality and the same audio quality of the experience that I'm having right now, for instance. So I think we all know that the big ICT companies are working on that. If you check the investment that Google is doing, for instance, on the capture side and on the whole pipeline of processing after this capture side, 6DOF, it's amazing. If you see Intel, the devices that they are creating, I mean, we are using their devices now. Also, Microsoft is doing the same, and of course, Oculus, Facebook. Are the Facebook with their new platform that they will launch very soon, Facebook Horizons. They promising things there, no? So let's see what we have there.
Okay.
But I expect.
Well, thanks. We have 7 minutes left. Let's dive into some of the questions that came in. Jarn, you've had a look at them.
Yeah, Jay, coming back to your equality point, there is a question about where are we with social VR today? I know a platform, Vantage Point, that is reducing racism on the work floor using VR. How is used in training of medical worker and using avatars or photorealistic humans?
Within my company at the moment, we are very looking very deeply into the sociality of virtuality. Also, the anonymity of virtuality is very important for us. You know, you can be somebody else. You can be judged on what you say, and if you say the right things. You know, these are things that you're looking to. And also within our training, how do you approach a difficult customer? You can use it's a thing. You know, when you're behind a facade, when you're behind an avatar, you act differently than when you're facing somebody face to face. But that avatar, you can associate yourself with it. It's very important. Psychological thing. So, you know, I think, as I said again, I think it's going to be the great equalizer.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from Henrik. What are the current solutions for really confidential conversations in, for example, research and development of big companies? Conversations that would usually be done face to face. Are any companies specialized in?
Pablo, maybe. No?
I wouldn't know. Actually, sounds like a very interesting use case. But
yeah.
Or a starting point of good research.
I'm not aware of any company actually specialized on private, very important conversations.
Zoom.
Oh. Zoom? I don't think so. Anyone can get in there, right?
No, actually, Zoom is currently able to do encryption both sides, so they make a big step in security. So that I think when
lately, I would say
lately, But when Zoom will, I mean, Zoom would be a platform that potentially can, if they add a virtual reality layer, that would be like an equalizer, and everybody can have access to it. So I think potentially these kind of platforms with a VR. We already have our own backgrounds now. I mean, next time we're all in front of a palm tree. But I mean that is a very ways of people pulling into these technologies, and now with encryption both sides, I think it's a good way of keeping it safe.
One word I didn't hear so far, I think, during the last hour: sustainable development. How is VR, of course, contributing to sustainability, Christian?
I mean, we're seeing it a lot in reducing the need to travel when you're doing training. That's a big part of it. But also, I think it's very much ingrained with this intrinsic value that you're starting to see people who can now live off being Instagram influencers or creating skins for various games like Counter-Strike. That we're starting to see this decoupling of value from the material world. And I think VR and AR definitely is going to reinforce that decoupling, which can drastically reduce our need for physical resources. And I also think that we're going to see a merging of VR and AR hardware back into the contact lens when we're looking 25 years in time. More that VR today is going to be something that covers your entire field of view, and AI is just the mode that the contact lens is in.
No, exactly. Yeah, I think there was a company, what is it, Mojo Vision or something, that got really a big, Okay, let's take a few more questions and then it's a wrap.
Okay, just one of the last. The future, is the future of VR really VR, or are we talking more about augmented reality? So do we really talk about VR in 5 to 10 years? Anyone?
I think they're two different scenarios. I think they are both have their value and will develop further. And what we already said, that AR is actually mixing data and insights with everything you do during the whole day, displayed on your car screen, whatever. So I think it's totally different, but it uses the same kind of technologies.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned it.
Jay.
Oh, sorry, but I think the future is going to be we're going to be using augmented reality within virtual reality. What do you think about that one? That could be
That's a good one. Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah. Okay.
One last question. And
yeah,
then,
another question. We are almost done. What's your opinion about 360 live streams to VR headsets? What's the biggest challenge to overcome to make it scalable?
Sergi.
I was in this situation 3 years ago. Then we started to work together with Pablo and the other partners in VRTogether. Basically, 4 years ago, we saw 360 cameras were coming to the market, and we said, let's build the streaming systems for them, because we wanted to put people in the middle of a football match or a basketball match or video entertainment, and we did it. And we did it. And when we did the test with users, they said, very nice. Well, yeah, everything we know, the headset, the quality of the image. But the worst thing was, yeah, but I'm alone. So I want to share this with someone. And then that becomes in the end the main thing. Wherever
so the social impact is really
that's
important.
Key.
The social
that's,
aspect.
That's totally key.
Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock. I would like to thank you very much, Pablo, Bas, Christian, Jay, and Sergi, for your active participation. I hope you enjoyed it. We have come to the end of this webinar. We would like to know of the audience, of course, what you thought of the audience. So we will send out a short evaluation afterwards to see how we can improve future webinars. And so you will receive an email with this short questionnaire and also with a link to this broadcast, so you can watch it at a later stage or share it with people that you think it might be of interest to. So thank you all for your attention, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
To make it, sorry.